Welcome to Around the World Today. I'm your host, Terry Davis, and in this week's episode, we're moving on from the British Overseas Territories and now looking a little bit closer to home, for me anyway, the United Kingdom, and how it's made up, devolution within the United Kingdom, how it works, starting with the broader look of its historical evolution. In episode 20, we'll look at Wales. In episode 21, England. And episode 22, Northern Ireland. Episode 23, we'll look at Scotland. But for now, let's set the stage with an overview of what devolution is.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Devolution refers to the transfer of certain powers from the UK to regional governments within the United Kingdom. Unlike a federal system, the power is not equally divided among regions, and the UK Parliament retains ultimate authority. The process has led to the establishment of legislative bodies like the Scottish Parliament, the Welsh Senate, and the Northern Ireland Assembly. England, however, operates under a different framework, primarily relying on local councils and city regions for governments. But why was devolution introduced? What does it mean for the unity of the United Kingdom? Let's rewind the clock and find out. Devolution in the United Kingdom is rooted in centuries of political and cultural history. Scotland and Wales retained its distinct cultural identities despite joining the United Kingdom in 1707 and 1536 respectively. We apologise for if we upset anyone's historical elements here, including my own, respectively. The 20th century saw growing calls for self-governance, leading to key moments like the 1979 referendum on devolution in Scotland and Wales, which failed to achieve the required support. The Good Friday Agreement of 1998, which created the Northern Ireland Assembly. The 1997 referendums that established the Scottish Parliament and the Welsh Assembly, now known as the Senedd. These milestones reflect a balance between regional autonomy and an overarching structure of the UK government. Devolution means that the decision-making moves closer to the citizen and is more democratic. Devolution is not new. Like I've said, there have been many different forms of devolution in the UK for decades, and it is common in other parts of the world. The current form we're going to be looking into, like I've said, came about in the 1990s. In 1997, voters chose to create the Scottish Parliament, the National Assembly for Wales, and in Northern Ireland, devolution was a key element of the Good Friday Agreement, which was supported by a referendum in 1998 and in 1997 in Scotland and Wales. The UK government has developed decentralisation in England. This is though through transfer of powers and budgets and responsibilities to mayors and through city deals. So, how does devolution actually work? Each devolved body has specific powers. For instance, health and social care, education and training, local government, architecture, forestry and fisheries, transport. Some taxation powers, social security elements. However, these differ for Wales because Wales doesn't have social security elements where Northern Ireland and Scotland do. And again, with justice and policing, they are reserved for Wales within the United Kingdom. And then they all share sports and the arts. Defence, foreign affairs, immigration, trade policy, the constitution, broadcasting are all reserved to the United Kingdom Parliament. But there has been settlements in some complex areas where they negotiate and they become more fragmented and they they share responsibilities. So for one, what we'll talk about is like within the foreign policy, the devolved administrations have units within embassies around the world or key embassies to promote their devolved administration or their devolved country or nation. Their trade within those devolved administrations. We'll talk about that later on. But these are the areas that have been moved back. Now in England it is a bit different. The Parliament retains the rights of it all, but it's gone about in a way that a local mayor is appointed, and in some instances a regional legislator. So that in London they have a local mayor or an elected mayor and also an elected chamber. What's quite a bit like London's actually a state within a state. But can be tensions in all of this. And we're going to hear about some of those tensions in this little series, I feel. Devolution isn't without its challenges, though. For one, funding disputes often arise. The Barnett formula, which allocates public spending, has faced a lot of criticism for perceived inadequacies. Another challenge is the question of identity and unity. While devolution allows the regions to address local needs, it also raises questions about the cohesion of the United Kingdom. For example, the push for Scottish independence and debates about Northern Ireland Protocol highlighted these tensions. Moreover, England's lack of unified, developed body contrasts sharply with the autonomy enjoyed by other nations, leading to what some call the English question. The English question is, where is England in the United Kingdom? However, England in 1997, at the same time of Wales and Scotland getting a vote, had a vote about devolution. They were offered regional parliaments and regional governments in the same way that Wales and Scotland were, with local assemblies as they were. But they chose not to go. Then in 2011, I believe it was, they were given the opportunity for regional mayors in a referenda, and that passed, and this is what they've got now. I'm looking forward to learning about the English model of devolution, because in some instances they've moved, because they don't control some of the things the Welsh and the Scottish do. They've been able to go faster with transport policy. For one, I've been quite interested within the Greater Manchester area, as many of you know from this series, actually, from the beginning of this series, when we looked at transport, about the B network, and also transport for London as well, but that's a different aspect because that's held over from the days of when they were privatising the bus network. You could privatise the whole country, but you couldn't privatise London. Oh no, you could not touch London. Despite its complexities and challenges, devolution has been a catalyst for significant success across the United Kingdom, illustrating how regional autonomy can innovate and localise solutions. Let's delve deeper into some standout achievements. Scotland's renewable energy revolution and free university tuition. Scotland has become a global leader in renewable energy, leveraging its natural resources to provide over 97% of its electricity demand from renewable sources by 2020. Landmark projects like wind farms, hydropower initiatives, and tidal energy developments have set a benchmark for sustainability. Additionally, Scotland's decision to provide free university tuition for residents reflects a commitment to make education accessible, directly addressing regional priorities and fostering social mobility. Wales' environmental leadership, the Well-Being of Future Generations Wales Act 2015, is often lauded as a groundbreaking piece of legislation. Unique in its scope and ambition, the Act requires public bodies in Wales to consider the long-term impact of their decisions on economic, social, environmental, and cultural well-being. It has inspired international conventions about sustainability, development, and responsibility. Wales has also excelled in recycling rates, consistently ranking as one of the top performing nations globally in waste management. Northern Ireland's role in peace building, the establishment of devolved institutions in Northern Ireland as part of the Good Friday Agreement, 1998, has been a cornerstone of peace-building efforts. While challenges persist, the power-sharing government has enabled representation from both unionist and nationalist communities, providing for dialogue and reconciliation. Devolution has also facilitated region-specific policies addressing health, education, and economic development, tailored to the distinct needs of its population. Health and social care policies across all devolved administrations. Health services have been adapted to local needs. For example, Wales has abolished prescription charges, making essential medicines free for all residents. Scotland's focuses on mental health services has led to an innovative approach, including dedicated funding for young people's mental health support. Cultural identity and language preservation. Devolution has empowered regions to promote and preserve their unique cultural identities. Scotland and Wales, for instance, have made significant strides in promoting the Gaelic and Welsh languages. This has been supported by funding for education, broadcasting, and cultural events, helping to ensure these languages remain vibrant parts of the region's heritage. These successes demonstrate the power of devolution to address local priorities in a way that a centralised government might not. By tailoring policies to meet regional needs, devolution fosters an innovative emphasis on cultural pride and builds resilience in the face of natural and global challenges. The future of devolution remains a topic of vibrant and ongoing debate. as the United Kingdom faces questions about how to balance regional autonomy with national unity. As we look ahead, the trajectory of devolution will likely hinge on several critical factors, including political pressures, economic realities, and the social needs. Here are some key considerations for the future of devolution. Further decentralised. There are growing calls for even more powers to be devolved, practically in Wales and for the regions of England. Many in Wales, for example, argue greater autonomy, citing Scotland's stronger devolved powers as a model for their own future. The creation of an English Parliament has been proposed by some advocates that could address the current imbalance where English MPs hold a greater number of sway of votes in Westminster. This concept would allow England to have more local control over its affairs, while still maintaining its role within a broader United Kingdom framework. Proponents of this model argue that devolution should be more inclusive. Processes with regions like the north of England and the Midlands, calling for a fairer distribution of power. Devolution and national unity. On the other hand, some argue that further decentralisation could strain the unity of the United Kingdom. With Scotland pushing for independence and regional differences becoming more pronounced, there's a growing fear that a deepening devolution could further weaken the bonds between the four nations. The challenge is finding a balance, ensuring that devolved governments have the powers they need to reflect the distinct identities and priorities of their people, while maintaining the integrity of the United Kingdom. As a whole, questions about national identity, economic equality, and political cooperation will likely determine future debates around devolution. Devolution and the challenges of political landscapes. The political landscape of the United Kingdom is evolving rapidly, with political movements gaining traction across Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. The future of devolution could see a more varied and powerful cause for independence or enhanced autonomy. The influence of political parties like the Scottish Nationalist Party, Plaid Cymru, in Wales, and the Democratic Unionist Party in Northern Ireland underscores the growing desire for regional empowerment. The increasing volatility of the UK's political landscape, especially in a post-Brexit era, raises questions about the future of the Union, how devolution will adapt to meet the needs of a challenging electorate. Devolution's role in modern challenges. As we face the unprecedented challenges like climate change, economic disparity, and social justice, devolution could play a pivotal role in crafting tailored responses that are more effective than a national one. For example, Scotland's ambitious climate goals, which include becoming net zero nation by 2045, reflect the ability of devolved governments to address global issues with local solutions. Similarly, regions across the UK could implement target policies to combat poverty, improve public services, and create a more sustainable economies in response to shifting global pressures. Devolution could help to create a more localised adaptable policies that are agile enough to meet new challenges practically with those and with that could see a global impact. The question of federalism. One long-term discussion on the horizon is whether the UK should move more towards a federal system, where each nation has a defined set of powers that are enshrined in a constitution. Federalism could offer a clear framework for managing the complex relationships between the four nations, resolving tensions around power sharing, and ensuring greater equality of representation. However, this would require a fundamental change in the United Kingdom and how it is governed, which may not be feasible or the desire within the current political climate. But just because that is not in the current mindset, it isn't something that we shouldn't really explore. A federal state of Wales, a federal state of England, a federal state of Scotland, a federal state of Northern Ireland, all equal to each other within the United Kingdom, all with the same powers. In this federalised state, we've just been talking about the British Overseas Territories. They could become federal states within this greater United Kingdom. Economic disparities and devolution. Devolution has, at times, embraced or elaborated or shown or put big red markers for economic differences between the regions. While Scotland and Wales have received an increase of devolved powers, economic challenges remain significant, practically in Northern Ireland, where political instability has created roadblocks to constant governance as the regions grapple with their unique economic realities. Whether it's boosting tourism, developing local industries, or addressing urban inequality. How devolution handles these economic differences will be critical to its future success. The UK's approach to inter-regional economic cooperation could evolve into a more adequate system that would require deeper collaboration between central and devolved governments. Constitutional reforms and legal challenges. As devolution continues to evolve, questions around constitutional reforms will play a significant role. The legal framework between the UK government and the devolved governments needs to be a more clear definition. Over the past few decades, the UK's unconfined constitution has faced strains as devolved powers expanded, leading to potential challenges in resolving disputes over the interpretation and scope of the powers. Whether the UK will create a clear constitutional framework or will continue with its ad hoc legal process will be a major factor in determining the future of devolution. Cross-border cooperation. Now, there are borders within the United Kingdom. There's a Welsh border, there's a nice Scottish border, the English border, and there is a border in the sea between Northern Ireland. But yes, each area of the United Kingdom does have a different border. For my American listeners, isn't it funny? Whenever you watch American TV, and I do this a lot, they say, I'm going to England. Or whenever they're talking about the UK, it's in England. No, the United Kingdom, please. No, the future of devolution will require an enhanced cross-border cooperation between the devolved nations, while Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland have distinct needs and priorities. Issues like climate change, healthcare and transport infrastructure are areas where cooperation could yield better outcomes. The UK government will need to foster a more constructive relationships between the regions to ensure a cohesive response to cross-cutting challenges that affect the entire nation. In summary, devolution is not a clear cut. It will likely shape and be shaped by the evolving political, economic and social landscape, with regional voices demanding more power and flexibility to shape their destinies. At the same time, there is a critical question on how to balance this with the overarching need for a national unity. Devolution will play a vital role in how the UK adapts to challenges of the 21st century, and it will require an ongoing dialogue and compromise among all parties involved. As we wrap up today's exploration of devolution across the United Kingdom, it is clear that this is a subject full of complexity, history and ongoing evolution. But our journey doesn't end here. In the coming episodes, we'll take a closer look at each nation's unique path to devolution, examining their successes, challenges and aspirations for the future. In episode 20, we will take a deep dive into Wales, a nation whose journey to devolution started modestly, but has grown into a robust system of governance, while exploring how the establishment of the Senedd, Welsh Parliament, has transformed Wales from a region with limited administrative powers to a nation capable of legislating on critical and crucial issues such as health, education, and the environment. How well-being of the Future Generations Act shaped Wales's priorities. What's next for the Welsh autonomy? In episode 21, we'll look at England. After Wales, we'll turn over our attention to England, a nation without its own devolved parliament. Instead, England's governance is a patchwork of regional authorities, metro mayors and local councils. We'll explore whether England is ready for its own parliament and what lessons it can draw from the other devolved systems within the United Kingdom, from London's powerful mayoralty to the Northern powerhouse. We'll unpack the debates surrounding English devolution and regional inequality. In episode 22, we're going to look at Northern Ireland. We'll focus on Northern Ireland, where devolution is deeply intertwined with the peace process. The Good Friday Agreement was a landmark moment that led to the establishment of the Northern Ireland Assembly. We'll discuss how devolution has contributed to the reconciliation, while also delving into the challenges posed by the political stalemates and Brexit-related tensions. What does the future hold for the region, where governance is so closely tied to identity and history? In episode 23, we'll take a look and we'll be going to Scotland, where devolution has been a success story and a source of political fraction, from the establishment of the Scottish Parliament in 1999 to the ongoing debate about independence. Scotland's relationship with the UK continues to evolve. We'll examine how the devolved powers have allowed Scotland to lead on renewable energy, health and education policies, while exploring what the push for independence means for devolution as a whole. Devolution is not just about policies, it's about identity, representation, and the power to shape a region's destiny. By diving into each nation's story, we'll gain a richer understanding on how devolution has changed the UK and what lies ahead for this evolving system of governance.
This week's episode has come to an end, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.
That's it for today. This episode of Around the World Today. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of devolution in the United Kingdom. I hope you found it as thought-provoking and enlightening as I have. Be sure to tune in to episode 20, where we begin our detailed journey into Wales' devolution experience. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favourite podcast platform. It really helps us to keep exploring these fascinating topics. I'm Terry Davis, signing off. Stay curious and see you next time as we begin our deep dive into Wales.